What's up, guys? It's me, James Mathis, and today we're going to talk about basics of shooting video with shutter speed, aperture, ISO, and how to balance those in the proper way for video to get your video looking like this. So let's roll that intro and let's get started. Are you ready? I hope you are, because this is going to be fun. It's going to be a good discussion. We're going to get into it and we're going to talk about it. So we're going to start right off the bat with frame rate. And because frame rate is what helps us decide our shutter speed. And so what is considered cinematic or movie-like is 24 frames per second. And that means every second there are 24 pictures being taken and they're lined up together, and that's what causes the video. 30 frames per second tends to look more like TV shows or home video or something along those lines. And so it's a different look because it's 30 frames. It's obviously going to look different, right? And then for slow-mo or sports, you have 60 frames per second, which there's not near as much normal motion blur. It's very, I don't know, it's hard to describe it. It just has a certain look. It's great for slowing down onto a timeline of a 24 or 30 frame per second video, but for me, it's more for slow motion stuff. And then now 120 frames per second is definitely for slow-mo. It's great. I love it. But we have these different frame rates for these different options. And for me, I shoot my videos in 24 frames per second. And this is what it looks like. It's very natural with the motion blur. It's very what we're expecting to see if we're going to go see a movie. And so if I am shooting using the 180 degree shutter rule, which means twice as fast as whatever my frames per second is, if I am shooting at 24 frames per second, then my shutter speed needs to be 48. A lot of cameras don't have 48. Mine actually does. Yeah. And so I can literally shoot exactly double my frame rate. And it gives you the most natural looking video, the way our eyes see when something moves fast. So if you take your hand and you do this in front of your face, you're not gonna see every single time your hand is, and it's going to be perfectly there. It's going to be blurred a little bit. And so that's what we go for when we use the 180 degree rules, to have that motion blur be as natural as possible to what our human eyes can see. And so if you take the shutter speed out of the equation, now that your shutter speed has to be double your frame rate, that means to expose properly, you have to worry about aperture and ISO. So next up, we're going to go ISO. With ISO, my goal is to keep it as low as possible and still get the shot properly exposed, because the more you raise your ISO, the more you introduce digital noise and grain and just meh-ness, right? That's going to be the Jimmy word, meh-ness. And so I do everything I can to keep my ISO as low as possible. Obviously, in dark situations, you can't always do that, but that is always my goal. Next up is aperture, and this is where it kind of gets a little wonky, because this is the big thing that you have to control if you're in a very bright situation, and you can raise your f-stop up to like f8, f16 and expose when you're outside, especially for those situations. But what if you want to get shallow depth of field like I have? You see my background is blurred. What if you want to get that and you're outside, but you can't mess with your shutter speed, and you need your ISO low, because the lower it is, obviously that's still good, but your aperture has to now be adjusted in order for it not to be overexposed. And that's when those ND filters come in handy. I even use one when I'm in the studio, to be honest, just because these lights are really bright. But putting all of those pieces together is how we can properly expose our video and come up with the settings we need. So for me, I shoot 24 frames per second, so I'm using a shutter speed of 48. If it doesn't have 48, use 50. My ISO is as low as possible, so right now my base ISO when I'm shooting F-Log is 800, so that is as low as it'll go when I'm shooting F-Log, so it's set at 800, which is why I have to use the ND filter because it's so bright, especially with a 1.4 lens, but I like having the 1.4 lens because it blows out the background. So by putting all those pieces together, I understand how to shoot my video and get the things I want. So if I don't care about depth of field, then I can just crank up that f-stop when I'm outside and I can still get the shot that I want. But if I want the shallow depth of field, I have to make sure I have an ND filter, and it all kind of goes together to make a video. And Next up, we have audio, which is just as important. And I have my Rode Video Micro sitting on top of my camera plugged in. I have the decibels to like negative 12.5 because I don't want it to be so quiet that if I bring it up, you're gonna hear a lot of noise, and I don't want it to be so loud that it clips. And so this is kind of my sweet spot with me sitting this far away from this lens to where I won't get that. And it's on a tripod. We're gonna talk about the lights in the next video. We're gonna talk about lighting for video, which is gonna be fun. But when I'm shooting these type videos, this is how I do it. I have lights, I have the lights back there, I have my background set up, I have my ND filter on my lens, you know my settings, it's on a tripod, the mic on top, and then I shoot. And once I shoot it, that's when I go into Premiere Pro and I will color grade, especially because I'm shooting log, because I like to get the Jimmy colors, and that's just my thing, is I like messing with it and seeing what I can do. But by shooting log, that gives me the freedom to do the color grading and stuff, and then to balance the audio and to pick music that I think will go with the theme of what I'm talking about, and putting all that together. And that is the basics for me for making a YouTube video or making a video in general. So if you have any questions about that, let me know down below in the comments. I will more than happy make a video on any of these things and really dive into like nitty gritty details. But this is just a quick like basics to getting started shooting video. I hope this helps you guys. I hope this makes sense. I hope it's something that you can use to make your videos better. If you did like it, leave a like, it'd be great. Leave a comment if you have any questions, or if you just think it's a cool, dope video. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel, it'd mean the world to me. I love you guys. I hope you had an awesome day. Don't forget to live that creative life. I'll see you next time. Bye.